All right, we're back. We got cut off with our free version of Screencastify, which is awesome to use in the classroom as well. But so our informal formative assessments, we can constantly take the pulse of our class informally. We can ask students for thumbs up, thumbs down. We can ask them to write questions on the exit cards. We can even turn this digital. We can do a show of hands or whiteboards up. So having them do a written activity and then holding their whiteboards up so I can quickly scan the class. Using technology, we can convert our regular PowerPoint notes to Pear Decks where we can add interactive questions along the way. We can have in Quizlet decks embedded into our Schoology accounts. We can have discussion posts instead of exit tickets or exit cards with questions. You can have students post their questions there. And then there's also a website that is great to check out as a teacher is Slido, so students can ask questions interactively as they are learning. So they can post those questions, students can upvote them, and then teachers can know where student questions really lie. So another tool that we can use is longitudinal formative assessments. So thinking about what will allow students to look at their progress, teachers look at their progress amongst a period of time. And the way our curriculum is divided up, it is into units. And so for each unit, we can easily create these success checklists for students that they can keep in their binders. And we'll talk more about this. So this on the top, you'll see it has a practice assessments page where students can record when they finish their practice quizzes and their practice tests and the score that they've earned before the actual formal assessment. Also, where they can record their homework assignments, and then I come around and mark them as completed by putting a stamp in the completed category. If they don't have it, they write late and check it in with me later. And then at the very bottom, before the assessment, students can work through this self check quiz. These are the questions and the topics that are going to be on the first unit. How do they rate themselves? Are they a 0? I have no clue what this is, or are they more I have mastered this material completely? And where do they lie in between? So what I would like to do is take a look. I talked about a lot of different things that I plan to implement throughout the year. To do all of those things in one unit would be pretty unrealistic because just throwing too much at students too fast is an issue. Throwing too much at teachers too fast is an issue. And it's better to do a few things well and master those before moving on and adding something else. We would tell the same thing to our students. So you'll see a lot of those examples here as we move along. So this format that you see here is something that's required by our district. We have to do what we call teaching with purpose. We explicitly say what we are doing, why it is important, and then how students know they can be successful for the day. So as I go through these, I won't read them to you explicitly. You can read them along as you listen, but we'll talk about the agenda on the right-hand side, what we're going to do, and then some of the extra resources will pop up as well. So day one for this unit, I would distribute the success checklist for that longitudinal formative assessment. And students would take basic reading notes. I would do this on a Pear Deck, and then they have a note packet that coincides and they take down their vocabulary notes. And at the end of class, to make sure that they were okay, I would assign them to have mini conversations with their group mates. So the basic readings teach them how to say hello, how are you, see you later, goodbye. And so they would go back and forth practicing. I even like to do this as a speed dating type thing where I take students and I line them up and they rotate down the line and have conversations with different students. And so for me, on the first day, I can walk around, listen to pronunciation, listen to them as they're using their notes to see did they grasp the information. And if they did, moving on, so here's a quick look at Pear Deck. It runs just off of Google Slides. It's very sophisticated. Students enter no problem, and I can ask students questions along the way. They can be multiple choice. They can draw an image, drag an indicator somewhere on a chart. So there's a lot of opportunities here. So day two of this, we're going to learn how to say goodbye, continue to work on that. So the first thing you're going to see pop up is our workbook. So we have this pre-made workbook. So the first page that they would do is here. It has time expressions and teaching about Mr. and Mrs., all of those beginning activities. So the next day, it's a great way to start off and check, walk around the classroom informally with a formal formative assessment and say, okay, where are we at this and check this as a group. We would then take more notes and do some listening activities. I did not put them on there because their workbook isn't very indicative, but they would have to answer questions, match the statements based upon the Spanish that they heard. And to utilize technology in here, what I would have students do is have exit conversations that they would record on Flipgrid. And so they would get with their partner, similar to that assignment I showed you earlier. and they could do those and turn them in. It's kind of like a visual oral exit ticket that they can turn in to me and I can watch later. And so the next day, we would on day 3 continue to practice our vocabulary. I don't throw anything new to them except for the alphabet. We do start to sing the alphabet song. And so within here, you see a bunch of text activities and a bunch of work textbook activities. Using these as formative assessments, I can have students do them on whiteboards very quickly, hold up their answers. I can call on students at random. I can take volunteers. They would do the first activities here that you would see, followed by these activities, which are oral. So they would have a conversation with a classmate. Again, me circulating the room, listening for answers, answering questions. We would finish up in those activities with some more workbook activities that you see here. And then at the very end, we're going to have a Schoology practice quiz. This is something that we'll build into Schoology. I made a bunch of them for this course. And so here's the beginning expressions practice quiz. It would show them 5 questions at a time that pull from about 25, and they can take their quiz. It doesn't impact their grade. We have a special category in the grade book called practice. It counts as 0%. They can take these formative assessments as many times as they want. Again, talking about assessing the question in the same, assessing students in the same way we practice the material. A lot of these questions here mimic and model the questions that they see on their exam. In day 4, we're going to learn notes. We're going to take notes on numbers 0 through 100, try to scare them that day. And then we also have some whiteboard practice. So what I do is pull up our Quizlet that's embedded into Schoology and have students write out the words. So they would see the digit 94. They would write out words 94. And then we usually think pair share, so share amongst your group. And then you could hold it up, walk around groups, see where students are at. They also can do this to do as an exit ticket. So this is Quizlet with spell. And so they would see 41 at the bottom, type 41. Quizlet will tell them whether or not it is correct. And I can see through a program called Go Guardian all of their screens at once to see how many they're getting right, where they're going wrong, and to make sure everyone's on task. So we're going to continue to practice 0 through 100 on this day. We also have some more workbook and some whiteboards all the time, checking students. Thumbs up, sideways down, getting with a group mate. I sometimes have students ask everyone come up with a question, because if you have that question, someone else in the classroom likely has that question. So here would be a good start to this day. What can students do with or without their notes? Where are they at with it? If they're doing it with their notes, they're definitely working on to learning it. If they're doing it without their notes, they've mastered the material, they can do it. We then check this as a class. I put the answers up on the board, take volunteers to answer different questions. I would then go back to whiteboards with numbers, putting numbered flashcards on the board, having students write out the words. It's such a foundation skill for them in the class. And then we would finish with a numbers Schoology practice quiz. I like to look at this data at the end of the class then, or I plan to then figure out who needs what intervention and where. Day 5, we'll do listening, the alphabet, and then we continue to work on numbers. So with this kind of day, I would take some students and do some reteaching based upon their practice quiz from yesterday. I would have other students get to do some more problem-based worksheets and things that are a little bit more fun to enrich their learning, but at the same time giving attention to those students who need more help. With the formative assessment we took yesterday, we're able to do that. And then they would get homework. This is the answer key where they write out sentences, and this will be due the next day. We also learn days and months, and so finding out the date, how to write the date. This is a big skill for them in Spanish 1. They do it all the time throughout the course, and so I love to do whiteboard practice with this using flashcards. I'm sorry, there is also a Quizlet where they can type it out, and that is embedded straight into their Schoology course. Day 8, we're going to continue to practice numbers by learning to do time and finding out the date. And so we are going to do a couple activities here today that are formative. First, we'd start with a workbook activity on paper. This one could very easily be put into Go Formative. I try not to overwhelm my students too much in the beginning of the year. We use Go Formative often later in the year, but as Spanish is overwhelming enough to start, it becomes a lot. We also will do a calendar worksheet to see where are they with their calendar information. We will do a dates practice quiz, again for me to assess the group and look at that data, and then they can work on that. And so moving on, we learn to tell time in Spanish. We practice dates again on this day. We want to make sure that we have that after we practice time. Always cycling back